So hello, everybody, and hello, Facebook. You're very welcome to the next Lunch and Learn. Today, we have the incredible Head of Enterprise for Cavan, Marcella Rudden, who has 25 years experience working in the business development and enterprise promotion space. And she's going to be asking our questions regarding the trading online voucher a little bit later. And we also have Keith Feighery, who's a leading digital marketer who I've known for years, who's got great experience building digital marketing strategies, running digital marketing campaigns for businesses, and he ain't a bad trainer too. So, guys, you're very, very welcome.
Great stuff. Thanks,
Hi, Greg. How are you?
Good to be here.
Fantastic. So let's get this show started.
Your local enterprise office, helping your business respond.
So there was our fancy intro and everything else, or outro. So we've started anyway. One of the questions that came in last night, and it's a good question to start today's session, and it's for you, Keith.
Okay.
Is what makes a good website? So if we're thinking about doing business online, there's obviously a lot of competition. So what makes a good website versus a bad website?
Well, I mean, I think that it needs to be, I suppose you look at your brand and the business and the identity of the business, make sure that's kind of clearly from an aesthetic perspective, obviously, that you kind of convey the business. Obviously, if we're talking about selling online, the functionality, the navigation, the presentation of all the products, the description of all those products, etc. The checkout process, making sure that that's nice and smooth and straightforward. There's no kind of, you're not unnecessarily kind of asking people for information where you don't really need it. So just making that process as seamless as possible. Obviously, we're talking about mobile-friendly websites as well today, clearly. Speed of your website, make sure that it's fast. Lag times on load for pages loading will obviously deter people. So kind of, a whole mixture of aesthetic, functionality, obviously around the e-commerce, the quality of the product, and then the ease of checkout and things like that.
Okay. Brilliant. So one thing we really, really want to do, guys, is make sure that our website is a good experience and it's not cluttered. We're not throwing the kitchen sink at our prospective customer when they land on it. Today's agenda. Let's put an agenda on today's show. Here's what we're going to try and achieve with Keith and Marcella between now and kind of 10 to quarter to 2. So we're going to talk about what kind of things do we need to have in place to trade online. What does our website need to do? What digital marketing tools do we need to embrace to make this happen? Keith has put together a very cool online checklist, which we'll showcase at the end. And of course, Marcella will be talking to us about the ins and the outs, the do's and the don'ts, the tips and the tricks when it comes to the trading online voucher. So that's our lofty agenda for the session. Another question that's just come in, Keith.
Okay.
And again, this isn't a straightforward answer, I wouldn't say, but can I convert my website to an e-commerce site?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably a lot of people on the line here, I would imagine there's WordPress is probably a common enough platform that a lot of them are using, and WordPress, in fairness, has got there's a plugin that goes with WordPress for WooCommerce, which will allow you to kind of convert that more kind of standard page-driven website into a product-driven website. So certainly that will be an option. Obviously, for those people who are coming at it from afresh, they would look at possibly other options around Shopify and BigCommerce and things like that as well. But the answer is that, yeah, potentially you can just take, particularly if it's a website that's got even platforms like Wix as well, you can sell through those too. So if it's one of those kind of standard platforms, there is additional functionality that you can switch on that'll enable you to sell products online.
Brilliant. So don't assume that you can't sell online on your existing website. There are options. Mm-hmm. And I think 1 out of two websites built in the world is built on WordPress. So if you have a WordPress site, possibly using the likes of WooCommerce is a good starting point.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so some fantastic tips there, which was another question that
All
came
right.
in, funnily enough, which was WooCommerce or Shopify. What's
Yeah.
better?
Yeah, I mean, there are two different platforms, obviously. The Shopify is a 100% hosted system. So that's kind of everything is out of the box there. You don't need to get any extras with that. Now, there's a whole kind of app store that goes with Shopify to increase the functionality that you get with the product. Whereas WooCommerce is it's a self-hosted system. So it gives you more flexibility, more control. There's a whole ecosystem around all the WordPress plugins, etc., that you can get with that. So if you're looking for more control, probably go with WooCommerce. In terms of you'll own the source code because it's an open source product essentially. Whereas Shopify, everything is done within the Shopify environment. There is a coding language that goes with Shopify that you would have to learn, Liquid, to make some kind of serious changes on that. So it kind of depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for kind of a press the button e-commerce site, possibly Shopify. If you're looking for a little bit more control, a bit more kind of flexibility in terms of the functionality that you're going to provide, possibly WooCommerce.
Okay.
There's other platforms as well, like Magento, which would be kind of bigger, kind of more robust enterprise e-commerce platforms too. So there's lots of options out there.
Brilliant. So I suppose a good starting point sometimes is we're going to be talking a little bit later to Marcella regarding the trading online voucher. But I mean, a good starting point is probably to have a chat with your local enterprise office and get some advice, and even see what kind of web developers I could talk to find out what my needs want. Because I suppose if you start to talk to the experts, you'll start to see whether WooCommerce or Shopify is best for your business. So would you say that's good advice, Marcella? Contact you guys?
Yeah, I think so. I agree, absolutely. And I think most local enterprise offices would appoint a mentor if you needed that kind of direct guidance and advice. And Keith's checklist will be very useful, I think, later on. So it's just to kind of demystify, I suppose, that initial conversation and communication with a web developer, because I think it's very important that you're able to translate kind of your brand across from maybe a physical premises to extending it through to your online presence. So don't feel afraid to ask those questions and get some advice and guidance, which absolutely is available through your local Leo.
Okay, we will look at Keith. Keith has a little checklist a little later, which we'll take a look at. The question that's it is, my website is very slow. And obviously the slowness of that your website loads can be a big offender in losing customers.
Of course, yeah.
So the question is, what can I do to speed up my website, or any recommendations for speeding up my website?
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, in terms of Google actually has a tool that you can run your website through that will so if you type in Google speed test, they'll bring you to a link that you can type in your URL, your domain name, and they'll test your website for you from a mobile and a desktop perspective. So there's various different things that you can do. Obviously, looking at things like your images, compressing those images, making sure that the payload of those specific images across your website, particularly if you've got particularly image-laden pages, try and reduce the footprint of those. You can also look at things like caching. These caching frameworks, which means that every time somebody visits your website, they don't have to go and download all the elements again. A lot of the elements will be sitting there already. You can do things like there's some more technical things that you can do around the infrastructure. You can optimize some of those technical things there as well. But generally speaking, I think the good starting point, and you'll probably see this when you run your website through that little Google speed test tool, is that your images tend to be kind of they may not be as compressed to the degree that they should have. So that'll probably help you initially anyway.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant point, and it's something people don't realize is we're told when we're building websites or we're building our own website, we need big images. That's what people like. People like big images. We may even go to Shutterstock and buy the biggest size image that we can find, and then we upload it to our website. And obviously, big file sizes are the biggest offender when it comes to slowing down the speed of your website. So what they didn't tell us in school, so to speak, was every image you put in your website, to Keith's point, needs to be compressed to the smallest file size, so it doesn't labor the speed in which your website loads.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, obviously for online, you don't need the same kind of resolution as you would for kind of offline images and stuff like that. So you can compress them down, maintain the quality, and then improve the speed of your site.
Yeah, so I think even if you type into Google image compressor tool, you'll find loads of
free tools out there that'll do that for you. Yeah, absolutely.
There's JPEG Mimi, there's a bunch of them.
Yeah, loads of them.
But that's a really nice piece of advice. So look at the size of the images, the file size of the images on your website. Here's another thing that would affect how we would trade online. Someone says here, customers have told me they get a warning saying my website is not secure. Any ideas why? That's a disaster if you're trying to encourage people to purchase on your website. It's a big warning saying it's secure. Presumably that's something called an SSL certificate. Can you explain that?
Yeah, like, so basically it's an encryption. It's a piece of software for encryption for your website to make sure that people's data, when they're putting in payment details, are secure going up and down. So they pass to you. So having it's an SSL certificate. You get it with a lot of hosting packages, but you can buy them separately as well and connect them to your website. A lot of payment providers won't allow you to process payments without having an SSL. So if you're using things like Stripe, etc., they will insist that you do have it. Things like Shopify will have that out of the box. BigCommerce, I think, as well. Likewise, will have that out of the box. It's just standard. WooCommerce, a lot of people who are using WooCommerce, they might use a hosting kind of service called I think it's Bluehost, and they will likewise typically as part of the package they will give you kind of the SSL certificate. So yeah, it's something, obviously, if you're processing payments, it's mandatory. That you and plus, obviously, as Greg is saying, people will get warnings that your site is unsecure and stuff. So it's not an option if you're looking to sell online.
Yeah, so how I know if I have an SSL certificate on my website, may not know. You'll notice very often when you're on Google Chrome, you'll see a lock next to your web address.
Exactly.
You'll also notice that your web address starts with HTTPS rather than just HTTP. So, and to Keith's point, which is a great one, is you can get your SSL certificate from the place where you get your website hosting. So if that's Black Knight or Let's Toast or any other Irish domain provider, they'll be able to get you an SSL certificate, which is brilliant.
That's it.
Great. Now, here's a great question by Roisin. How you doing, Roisin? Hope you're well. See whether you can see this on the screen there.
All right.
Keith, and I'll read it to you. So Roisin says there are platforms like ShareSpace and Wix where non-techie people can self-design websites or download templates from WordPress. Would you recommend, would you comment on pros and cons of this?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I think they are. You can. There's templates that you can use across all those platforms. Squarespace, WordPress obviously is the biggest one out there, and there's absolutely hundreds of thousands of themes developed in templates. Some are better than others, obviously, and some come with more functionality. Some, a lot more kind of. With those themes and templates, a lot more kind of elements and components that you can add to your website. So yeah, you can do it yourself, but I mean, at the same time, it depends. If you want flexibility and control, it's probably a good idea to engage with a designer developer who can give you a more customized look and feel to your website. But in fairness, some of them will be taking templates, and they will be going in and customizing the actual template for your specific needs. Whereas if you're doing it and you don't really have much kind of experience in doing that, the level of configuration is probably going to be fairly limited. But depending on your website, that might be perfect as well. So it all depends on what you're looking for.
Exactly. I think that's great. That's great advice. So, I mean, just to reiterate what Keith is saying, I mean, it's much better to have a starting point and be online via Squarespace than have no presence online. So there's often a starting point. Sometimes a Wix site or a Squarespace site is a stepping stone to a better website when you have more resources and time, or maybe even your business grows a little bit further and requires further investment. Obviously, Marcella, we talking about the trading online voucher, but there's never been a better time to potentially look at a web developer and actually build a really good e-commerce style or e-commerce enabled website now. So we'll talk about that in a little bit.
And in fairness, and Greg, we're also and just conscious of a lot of the people on the line here. They may not necessarily be e-commerce per se in terms of selling products, but they're more service-based businesses. And again, having a good website for them is critical. Lead generation, getting your phone to call, to ring, etc. So I know we're focusing obviously a lot on the product side of things, but obviously if you're a service-based business, and there's the Leo community will be, there's a lot of businesses that would predominantly be in the service space. Having a good website, being able to capture leads and inquiries, and making sure your phone number is in a very prominent position and people can call, etc., etc. That's obviously critically important as well.
Absolutely, and just so Marcella doesn't get left out in the cold for too long there. Keith did a very good point there. Even when it goes to designing a website and trading online, that it's not necessarily about a shop now e-commerce site. It can be allowing people to book appointments through your website. It can be allowed people to ask questions or inquire about services on your website. So there's much more than just when it comes to trading online. There's much more involved than literally a fully fledged e-commerce site.
Yeah, it's not just about, as you said, a physical product. Lots of people, there are lots of service providers, for example. A good example is like a driving school, where you could use the trading online voucher to enable your website to take bookings and to pay for those lessons online. So I think you have to think of it as extending your business beyond the traditional office hours so that people can access your service or indeed look at your products or buy your products, literally around the clock, 24 hours. So I think that's the way that you have to approach it.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Wonderful words of wisdom. Quick question that's coming in, which is quite a general one, but it's a good one, is how can I get customers to find my website? So what I've now done is I've created and built a website. I'm now online and I'm just getting no traffic. I kind of expected some silver bullet and suddenly the business would flood in. What's happening? Any advice on how we can get people to find our physical website, or anything we need to do after we've built that website?
Yeah, I mean, of course, and first, that's obviously massively important. I mean, you can have a fantastic website, but nobody can find it. Therefore, it's not going to do any business for you at all. So, I suppose just looking at around all the different forms of digital marketing that are and the different options that you have there. Obviously, search is going to be massively relevant for a lot of businesses. When we think of a product or a service, typically we go and do a bit of research in the first place. We're going to do that. In reality, is search, and in at the moment, it's obviously going to be predominantly Google. So making sure that you're showing up for Google searches, and you've got a couple of options there. You've got search engine optimization, which is obviously creating a website that is well ranked from the search engines. And we can possibly talk a little bit about that. So that's what we call organic traffic, and then we've got paid traffic, where you can bid on search queries that people are typing in. If you're a product company, e-commerce, you can feed your product feed into Google through Google Merchant Center, and your products can show up. You can have advertisements that will show those products, etc. as well. So you can bid on keywords, have your products and these product listing ads showing up, or organic. Then you've got things like obviously social media, massive. Have a fairly active presence on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever the chosen platforms that you've decided you're going to look at, and things like email marketing, as you build up a GDPR compliant database too. So there's lots of different things that you can be doing, creating content. So we would call that like organic kind of traffic, where you're getting it through, your SEO, you're getting it through your social, but also paid traffic as well, where it could be search ads, display ads, little kind of video ads, social ads, etc. So you've got a lot of options, and I mean, that's, as a business, we're all in the same boat. We're trying to drive traffic, typically to a website, and specifically what we're talking about today. So you've got to look at different channels, and try and drive awareness, and then engage your prospects, hopefully to the point of where they'll purchase from you then at that point, or call you, or etc.
Yeah, no, you hit some great points. I mean, ironically, there's just a reality out there. Is it's easier if your competitors are doing stuff very badly online. It's harder if your competitors are doing things really well online. So we've got to kind of be aware of that. But as Keith says, there's obviously a lot more than just having a website required in actually trading online. We've got to leverage intelligent ads to drive the right traffic to our website, leverage social media to drive traffic to our website, create great content that Google recommends that drives traffic to our website. So there's a lot more to trading online than just having that an e-commerce site. Have you heard of? I've heard of it, but it's a question that comes in, and I don't know a whole heap about this tool, and you may not either.
Yeah.
But it's Teresa says it. I'll just stick it up on the thing. Bezu. Have you heard of Bezu? It's yeah. So do you think it's a good place for people to look at, or do you know enough about it at this stage?
I don't know. In terms of what's your interpretation of it?
So my interpretation, I like what you're doing there. You're flipping it on me, Keith.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
But I suppose it's a hub. You can think of it like Amazon, where you can trade your services online from a retail sector. To the best of my knowledge, it's all about commission. So so the reality is, if these tools can get you business that you need to operate, you should embrace them. However, if they take so much commission that you have no profit margin when you make a sale, they're not going to be worth your while. So you just got to be careful about how much commission are they going to take from me, and is it financially viable to leverage the likes of a platform like Bezu to do business. I would also say, Teresa, it's an and, not an or. So I'd still want my website and my web presence, and I'd still want to drive traffic to my website, as well as use third-party platforms. Could be Amazon, or it could be the likes of a Bezu to sell business. But just be wary of profit margin. Sometimes businesses say, I've made €100,000 in sales in the last quarter, and then you realize that your profit margin was minuscule. And really, you're not really making any money at all. So just be careful of your profit margins. That would be my two cents on that.
Well, I think you're better. I mean, the general kind of rule would be trying to have your owned media. So trying to have your own website. That's your platform. It's your hub. Everything else kind of flows out of that. Obviously, there's effort and investment involved in kind of developing that, but that's yours. You own it. It's an asset. And as you say, kind of selling through other third-party platforms, etc. It could be incredibly profitable for you. I mean, it depends on your business. It really does. I mean, obviously, look at the Amazon sellers, eBay, etc., etc. There's lots and lots of potential. Etsy for the more crafts kind of based stuff, jewelry, etc. So it depends on what you're trying to do, and in fairness for specifically around the conversation we're having today, some of those out of the box solutions like Shopify and things like that, I mean, they're very straightforward to set up as well. I mean, the learning curve around getting a presence up there, it's very cost effective as well. So as you say, it should be, and do these things, and in multiple kind of locations potentially.
Brilliant. Let's talk about a website checklist. So what are the kind of things we need to have in place, or we need to ask our web developer to do if we start to engage with one? I'll put the checklist up above. we'll talk through it. So some of the things we're going to need our website to do if we're commissioning a new one or looking at our existing website. Keith, talk us through those 10 points, and I'll jump in anyway.
Okay, mobile friendly. Yeah, that's a must, obviously, particularly for around retail, where so much traffic flowing through mobile devices. So whatever kind of platform you're using, WooCommerce, Shopify, BigCommerce, etc. Whatever the theme, the template is that you're using, or the design needs to be mobile friendly. Typically today they're responsive, so you build your website once and it kind of represents, depending on the size of the screen. So that's a must. So you got to be, when you're going through, if it's a design process or if it's a development process, making sure that your site is tested fully in a mobile environment. Website speed, as we talked about earlier on as well. You know, trying to increase the speed of your website through things like, because we talked about image sizes, caching frameworks. There's a whole load of kind of technical stuff that you can do, minifying all your HTML and your JavaScript, and configuring your server, etc. So the quicker the website on both mobile and desktop, that's going to be a good from a user experience perspective, but obviously it's also going to be good from a search perspective. So so Google, you know, you're not going to rank particularly well if your website is slow, because why would they bring you back in a high position if, when somebody clicks on your link, that it takes 5-6 seconds for that page to load up? Like, so it's going to impact on your visibility. SSL certificate is obviously around what we talked about already as well, which is the to make sure that your site is secure, using encryption, and again, as if you want to accept payments, onto the next point, you from Stripe, etc. You're going to need it to be SSL compliant, etc. So that's a must-have. The accepting the payments, yeah, there's loads of different options that you can have there. PayPal, Stripe. You might use a more kind of traditional payment gateway, where you kind of you connect with your merchant account and stuff like that. So there's different options there that are available to you, and you might need just to look at the different costing structures in terms of if there's monthly charges. But I think the part of the reason why a lot of people like Stripe at the moment is that it's obviously there's no setup fees, and the percentages are reasonable, and the transaction fees, they seem to be, and it's a nice kind of out of the box solution.
And it's an Irish company supporting Ireland.
Yeah, and it's been incredibly successful. So a lot of developers, they would like it as well, because it's a simple kind of implementation of JavaScript on your website. You've taken away the list there, but go ahead. That's fine.
The next one you had, I wanted to jump on and just ask you.
Yeah.
Was lead capture forms you have down as your next one. What exactly are lead capture forms?
Lead capture, yeah. Well, then again, that was more kind of directed at the service-based businesses, inquiries. So making sure that you can, somebody comes to your website and that they can, you capture their details, so, it's an inquiry form, just simple, contact us, making sure that it's pretty straightforward for the users to fill in. And this is all about looking at your website as, your website should be functional. So we should be doing things. It's not just kind of brochureware. That idea that your website is brochureware, that's not the way to look at it. I mean, it's there to activate prospects and leads. And so, if they can't buy from you, in terms of just a product, etc. But a lead is obviously very important from both B2B and business to consumer perspective as well, so that you can capture that and make sure that that's smooth and effortless for the user, and then that you act on that as well. So when you get the lead, you actually do something with it as well.
So that's brilliant. So it could be signing up for special offers or deals. It could be signing up to your newsletter, downloading an ebook, any of those things.
Contact us, give me a call back. I'm interested in this product or the service that you have. Like, just get in touch. So somewhere that you're capturing, phone number, name, email address, whatever it is, that there's a linkage.
Yeah, I used to always laugh where your websites had subscribe to my newsletter.
Yeah.
Oh yes, please, said nobody ever.
Yeah.
So always when you're creating your lead capture forms, make sure that they're interesting and they're valuable, and that you're thinking of the customer or client rather than yourself.
Yeah. So you've got to try and what your example there. It's there's no value there to the user. It's the value is there to the client, to the business. So trying to convey some reason why they should sign up to a newsletter or something like that as well. What do they actually get? People are they're self-motivated.
Cool. Brilliant. So number 6 is a data privacy policy.
Yeah, obviously GDPR, you have to be GDPR compliant, and obviously around that, letting customers know around what you do with their data and how you process that and what level of processing, and consent and all of those things, very important today as well. And you need to be compliant across the board with the data regulations that are in place. So that's a must as well. Yeah, and I think there's been a lot of, I think everybody on the line here, I'm sure has gone through kind of some process around GDPR compliance, and that's kind of internally within your own organization, but also from an online perspective, how you capture people's data, what do you do with that data, giving people the option to opt out and all that kind of stuff, it's a must.
Okay, so are there plugins and stuff for that? So it's like you can find it, like if I'm a WordPress user.
Yeah, I mean you can. Yeah, there's plugins around your policies and stuff like that, and then you can get that the consent forms, and you can and then you can again, different websites do it to a different degree. You can set what cookies get triggered at certain points, depending on the level of consent that people give. So you'll see different websites giving people more kind of what they call granular control of their data controls there on that. So yeah, you can do that, and you can integrate that with your site.
Cool. And then number 6 on your list was
sitemap. Yeah. Okay. So sitemap. Yeah. I mean, typically that's quite a thing. More from an SEO perspective. I think it was the context there on that possibly. So you can generate a sitemap, which is basically a kind of representation of the architecture of your site. You can then submit that typically to kind of entities like Google, where you tell them, it gives them a list of all of the different pages on your website, and these are the pages that you would like to be crawled. So it's just giving the search engines a helping hand. So you can register the address of that through things like Google Search Console, which is a little tool that Google provide for your site. And if you're using, possibly some people on the line, again, if they were using a WordPress website, they might be using a tool such as Yoast, which is kind of an SEO tool. People that would automatically generate kind of sitemaps for you, and then you register the reference for that with a tool like Google Search Console, and it can just help with kind of things like search engine optimization and making sure that all the pages on your website have been crawled by the search engines. So I think that's what the context of that particular point was.
Fantastic. And then we talked about great imagery.
Yeah, great imagery. Yeah, of course, it goes without saying. Look, high quality images. People, and that goes. I suppose the aesthetic in general. People are fairly critical today. You look at a website that looks old and a bit dated. It's very clear and doesn't kind of portray your business in the best way. So, as users because we're all using, good websites, purchasing stuff, our sense of kind of what a good aesthetic is very high. So therefore, if your website is old and dated and poorly designed, I mean, it's very clear to users, and possibly come away with a poor impression of your business, which is not what you want to do.
No, absolutely not. So we talked about that. Now, what was next on yours? This is a great point. Love number 9. Number 9. Really, really important point. So you've put right content for humans, but optimized for search engines. Explain that to me.
Yeah, I mean, I just made about kind of thinking about Obviously, what you don't want to do is start really mechanically stuffing keywords onto your web pages, which is what people would have done, going back down through the years. So obviously, humans are you want to write for people so that it reads well, is high readability factor with it. But also, when you're building your website, there's what we call on-page optimization for your content. So it just means that you kind of try and think about the keywords and the phrases that you would like to rank for with Google, and then you start integrating those words onto the page itself. And you put them in. So there's a whole load of tags that you try and populate, things like title tags and description tags and your heading tags and stuff like that, where you you distribute the phrases that you would like to rank for. With Google in a way that is human, it's kind of semantically correct. So in other words, it's written for humans, and it's got clear meaning, but that you're providing decent signals to the search engines in terms of the structure of the page and things like that. So I think that's the general point there, that you can help the search engine understand what your content is about by using these kind of predefined tags on your HTML pages. Sounds a bit technical, but it's actually pretty straightforward. And your content management system should help you do this. Actually, if you're using WordPress or Shopify, they're all well optimized from a search perspective.
Sometimes when I know I can do something, I can figure out how to do it. So even to say that, and I mean, this checklist is great to bring to a developer and go tick, 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 and just make sure that these things are actually executed when you're revamping your existing website or even building your new website. The last one, which is very important, obviously, for we need to make sure that our website's connected to Google Analytics. Google Console, you referenced earlier on, it used to be Google
Webmaster Tools, that's it.
Just making sure that those things are connected. And then something that's popular at the moment, particularly when it comes to trading online, is installing things called remarketing pixels, where we're able to serve ads up to people that have expressed an interest in our products and services. So give us a minute on that line.
Well, I mean, obviously Google Analytics is critical. It's free. It's a tool that it tells you, who's coming to your website, what are they doing on your website. You can track conversions, track events and goals and all that kind of stuff. So that's critical to find out how your website is actually performing. Google Search Console is more of a search engine optimization kind of tool. Gives you a lot of information about the search queries that Google ranks you for, how much traffic, how many impressions, how many times is your website or your web page is being pulled back for those specific phrases. What page do you rank, or what position do you rank for those specific queries? So that's a great tool to give you a bit of insight into that. It'll also give you, if there's any issues that Google finds with your website, they communicate that to you through Google Search Console. So that's really important. And then the last point that was on the list there around the remarketing pixels, again, that's related to paid media. And that will be where somebody goes into your website, looks at a particular product or even a service page. And these pixels are just like a little piece of code that sits on your website that, and typically a lot of people would use this for, platforms like Facebook and Instagram and say Google. So if I go to your website, look at a product, leave your website, go to Facebook, go to Instagram, or I might be on a website like the Irish Times or the Irish Independent, I will see potentially an ad from you for that particular service or product. And the only people who will see that will be, these people who've actually visited your site. So it's a very qualified audience, and they tend to perform pretty well too. So yeah, it's certainly something that you should be doing, and you can build those lists up over time. So you can, as people visit your website, the lists grow. And you can decide how long you want somebody to stay on a list. Is it going to be 30 days or is it going to be 7 days or 14 days or whatever? So you've got reasonable control around things like that as well. So yeah, all good points.
Fantastic. So a good little checklist there. So again, just to reiterate it, is your website mobile friendly? What's your website speed? Is it fast enough? It probably needs to be around the 2 to 3 second mark when it loads on a 4G network. An SSL certificate. Can I process payments on my website? Can I capture leads on my website? Do I have a data privacy policy? Have I submitted a sitemap to Google and to Bing? Have I compressed my images? is my content engaging that people would want to consume it, and would search engines like Google like it, and have I connected to the likes of Google Analytics, Google Console, and do I have remarketing pixels installed? That's a good checklist to bring to a web developer. So I think that's a fantastic bit of insight, Keith. So thanks so much for that.
No worries.
What I want to start to talk about the trading online voucher in a second, but one question that's in that's an obvious one to ask you for quickly is, what is Google Shopping?
Google Shopping is there's a couple of different things there. One is, I think that there's shopping ads, where you can, as I said earlier on, you need a Google Merchant Center account. You generate a product list, and that can be through kind of a spreadsheet, or even tools like Shopify and BigCommerce. They will automatically generate a product catalog. And then you can set up these campaigns where you can, as people search for those products, that your PLAs, your product listing ads, will show up, and then people, and actually it's pretty. You don't have to. It's not like the search ads where you have to write all the descriptions. Google pulls all that information from your website, and they show up there on that. And there is also another area called Google Shopping on the tabs when people search for stuff, where there is ads in there as well, but also now they've opened it up to kind of non-paid listings, where you can feed your Google your product catalog into Google, and when people are in the shopping tab, your product will potentially show up in there as well. So I think that's the context for the Google Shopping.
Brilliant. So fantastic words of wisdom there. So what I would say is, thinking about that is remembering it's more than just a website. So even Marcella is going to talk about the trading online voucher. There's no point having a website that people can purchase on if they can't find it. So trading online is about advertising. It's about a fast website. It's about being able to process payments. It's about driving traffic to your website from social media sites. There's a lot to that trading online piece. But let's talk about the trading online voucher now. So if you have any questions regarding the trading on voucher, please ask them. There's a few that we got in last night that I want to ask Marcella. Now, we do have a lovely message. We had a lovely message. I'll just show you, Marcella. We have a lovely message from your friends in Cavan.
So I'm glad someone's watching.
Yeah.
Give them a wave. Give your friends in Cavan a wave. There you go. Brilliant stuff. So there you go. That's major day now. The question, I think we know the answer to this. So first up, why don't you just tell me what exactly is the trading online voucher for anyone that doesn't know?
Well, the trading online voucher it's a financial incentive, Greg, and it's there to support an established business who have a limited online presence, or maybe has no online presence at all. So it's for businesses that are less than 10 employees. Your turnover has to be less than €2 million, and you must be trading for at least 6 months. So you have to have some track record of trading for 6 months. And the voucher will essentially provide you with co-funding. So up to a maximum of €2,500, or 90%, whichever is the lesser, and that's exclusive of that. So it's a great financial support to all the different types of businesses that we've been talking about earlier, about getting a presence online in whatever format that might take.
Okay, fantastic stuff. Now, so there's lots of myths going around regarding the trading online voucher. And John asked earlier on, I just want to throw it up here. He's saying, does the company have to have 50 employees to avail of the voucher? We have 10 people. Could we qualify? So I think John's got the wrong end of the stick there.
Yes, if you have 10 employees or less, then you can apply for the trading online voucher scheme. Yes.
So, John, you're better off.
Yes, you may be talking. There is another scheme that Enterprise Ireland is running for more than 10. Yes.
Okay, brilliant. So the trading online voucher 10 or less, brilliant. Another question is, if I don't
10
sell,
or less,
yeah. So a question is, if I don't sell products online, can I still avail of a trading online voucher?
Yes, well, I think as we discussed earlier, absolutely. If you have a service, it's not just for products. So if you have a service, for example, you have a hairdressing salon and you want to maybe implement a new booking online system, that would be covered under the Trading Online Voucher Scheme. There's lots of different, I suppose, eligible costs, and I'm sure that question comes up quite a lot there, Greg, is what can I use the voucher for? So the first thing to keep in mind is that if you meet those eligibility criteria, that's the first step. The second step then is what is it that I want to do with the voucher? And then there is an application process, and we might talk about that later. But
Brilliant.
ultimately, you can use the voucher if you're approved for anything from some IT consultancy, for developing and implementing a digital marketing strategy, which I think based on our discussions earlier is incredibly important. And developing an e-commerce website is part of that strategy for you. So it could be the purchasing of some internet enabling software. I think we mentioned some of those earlier as well. Photography costs, we talked a lot about photography, are really critical part of developing a website. And also online advertising, such as Facebook, that can also be a part of the eligible costs. And then there's the training and upskilling element as well, maybe to enable you to use your website and to update it yourself. So there's a whole array of costs that can all be kind of come together as one e-commerce website development project, Greg. So I think it's important for people to look at, what's their overall ambition and goal and what suits their individual business, because, as we talked earlier, different solutions suit different people at different stages of their business's development.
Now, there's some great comments coming in. You'd be delighted to know, and some of them they're asking, but I just want to give a shout out to them. So William, and we've answered this question, but just to reiterate to you, William,
can
it be used to pay for professional photography to take product pictures, videos for our website? Simple answer is yes.
Yes.
Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Yeah. No, I don't want to be preaching wrong now.
It's up. Yeah. Look, it is. Yes, that's part of an eligible cost. Yes.
Irma's asking, is the voucher available to self-employed people with no employees?
Well, if you're a self-employed person, you've one employee, so it's anything from up to 10. So I would say yes.
So don't forget to count yourself, Irma. You are a person.
Absolutely. Don't forget to count yourself. I'm sure she's doing a lot of hard work.
Absolutely. So the rule of thumb is you have to be in business and training 6 months or longer.
For at least 6 months. Yes. Yeah.
No, brilliant. Now we'll talk about there's a few questions regarding the application form, which we can talk at the moment. Now here's another question, and again, it can differ sometimes enterprise to enterprise office. So I don't want to put Marcella into the hot seat here. Bernadine saying, do you have to get 3 quotes?
Yeah, the quotations. Yeah. Look, you do, yes, and you certainly have to, and the reason that we seek the 3 quotations is it's about making sure that you're getting value for money, and that you're getting a broad, I suppose, range of costs with regard to the work that you have to do. So I suppose it gives you comfort on that level. You may have a preferred supplier, but I think in the current climate, it's no harm in seeking other quotations from similar suppliers to make sure that you're happy with what the supplier that maybe you're choosing. It can be difficult, particularly under the COVID-19 restrictions, maybe to get a response from people. But I think if you show evidence that you've sought 3 quotes, and those quotes can be by email, then I think probably you'll satisfy that criteria. But very, very important is having those conversations with web developers. And I think Keith gave a really good checklist on the technical side there. What I would say is, to do a little bit of research as well, Greg. Very important to have some research done before you engage in those conversations, so that you can kind of get across what it is you actually want from your website, and indeed from your whole digital marketing strategy that you're hopefully planning for the future.
Brilliant. We have some key takeaways in a little bit, and there's some gems in there that are going to help us. Another question that came in, which we'll look at the applications, is we can now get a second one. So if I've availed of the Trading Online voucher in the past, and maybe I've built my existing e-commerce website, maybe 1, 2, 3 years ago, I can now get a second trading online voucher, maybe to bring that up to speed and to tidy it up. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. That's a change that was made to the scheme recently, Greg. The trading online voucher scheme is actually in existence since 2013. That's when it was piloted, and the scheme came into full force in 2014. So if you got a voucher previously, now you can apply for a second voucher. And for most people, that's to develop their website further. So a website developed 2 or 3 years ago, as we know, would probably need upgrading now. And just to mention, just those that maybe, if they didn't attend one of the information workshops in the last 9 months, you would have to attend that workshop again. So just important to note that.
Okay, there's a great point. So the steps involved for applying for the trading online voucher. So I'm interested. I've less than 10 employees, turnover of less than 2 million. Isn't that correct?
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
And I'm interested. What do I do next?
Well, the next step is you meet the criteria. The next step is they would check out your local enterprise office website, and on all of those websites there will be a trading online voucher section on that website. And if it's not a section on its own, it probably will be under the training section and all the Leo websites, because it is a requirement of the scheme to attend an information workshop. In the current restrictions that are in place, they're all online now. So, and there's a big demand for them at the moment. So most Leos are running those either on a weekly basis, or there is an opportunity to log into a national webinar that are now happening as well, sometimes once and sometimes twice a week. So you should be able to log in to one of those workshops or webinars. They are free every week. And you can log in to your local enterprise office website, and that will tell you when the next scheduled workshop is coming up. But those information sessions are really critical, Greg, for kind of going through all the different aspects of the scheme, particularly the application process. So what you need to have in place in order to make your application. And as I mentioned earlier, if after that workshop you need a little bit more guidance and help, because there's a lot to consider on the technical side, then you can chat to your local enterprise office, and you can ask maybe for some assistance through a mentor. And I think that will guide you through then actually submitting your application to your local enterprise office.
Yeah, because I mean, these forms can be quite tricky.
Yes, they can. Yes.
I think the most important thing is your local enterprise office representative. They want you to get the voucher. They will work with you to help you fill that form out to get that over the line. So that's the one thing, that they're there to help you. Sometimes in life, there's people trying to trip you up. It's the opposite with the local enterprise office.
And we do understand it takes a bit of time, and everybody has different needs. And I think, as Keith mentioned earlier there, some of those solutions such as Etsy or eBay or the other ones that we talked about, they will get you online very quickly, and they may be the start. They may suit you now, but you could still look to maybe applying for the TOV voucher, maybe further down the line, or preparing for an application, because what you want is to make sure that your business has an online presence, and that all your other digital platforms, be it on social media, that it's all tied in together as part of an overall marketing strategy for your business. Because really the ultimate aim, in my view, is that you are communicating with your customer and engaging with them by whatever platforms you can engage with.
Yeah, brilliant. So a couple of quick questions coming in. I think they're relatively straightforward ones to answer. But Roisin asks, is it acceptable to get a quote from an overseas developer?
That's a tricky one. I think the developer has to be within a certain jurisdiction. So if the developer's in Dublin, then their registered address is there. I have to check that out, Greg, to be honest, but so I'm not entirely sure of the rules on that.
So Roisin, just contact your local enterprise office.
Yeah, to clarify that. Yeah.
I would say in these challenging times, it's about supporting each other. So
I think so.
In my opinion, if I was in Cavan, I would want to support a Cavan web developer. So I think we've got to support each other during these challenging times.
And I think even though Leo's, we can't refer anyone specifically as a public sector body, but there, I think most people when they're approaching the local enterprise office, they already know quite a few web developers, and they're more than familiar with a lot of good quality local web designers and developers in their area.
Absolutely, and I know that yourselves, that the local enterprise offices, if you don't know anyone, the starting point is to talk to you guys and to see who they put you in touch with. Just to reiterate, if anyone is contacting the local enterprise offices at the moment, needless to say, these are crazy times. People are working remotely. There's probably 10 times, maybe more, phone calls coming in per day than ever before from businesses. So what was recommended in the past is to send emails if you don't get through on the phone. So really focus on that. James asked here, so James built his own website. Could the online voucher help him upgrade? I assume the answer is yes.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's time, if he's going to look at how his whole website is functioning and he's looking at upgrading, absolutely, he should look into applying for the voucher.
Brilliant. So definitely look into that. And Melissa asks, she's providing a service rather than a product. We talked about this earlier on. She's providing therapy. Can she still apply for the voucher to upgrade her website?
Yes, I think she can. I think that's what we were talking about, extending your business out and having an online presence so that you can communicate and engage with your customers. So a lot of different local service companies have, they enable their website essentially so that their customer can engage with them. And that could be through a booking system. In some cases, it could be through various feedback. So maybe somebody who's had a good experience with a therapist wants to upload that, and there's specific software that your website needs to have in order for you to do that. So as Keith mentioned earlier, it's about capturing all your customers and keeping them there and hoping that they'll return to you either to make a purchase or either that they will certainly return to you to use your service again. So yes.
So brilliant. So Melissa, definitely look into it. It's now, if you have the time now is the time to do this. Let's not wait till we get back and get really busy and wish that we'd done something. Now is the time to do this. So brilliant. Talk me through the application process then.
Well, when you have engaged with your local enterprise office and you meet the eligibility criteria, next step is you've booked onto the information session. And after that information session, if you're still planning to go ahead with your application, your local enterprise office will forward the application form to you and talk you through it. And when you submit that form to us with all the requisite details on it, and look, there is information you will have to give and details you have to give on that form with your 3 quotations and various other paperwork. When we have that, Greg, and that then will be evaluated, it'll be checked and evaluated. And if you are approved, which hopefully you are, the next step would be then you would receive what we call a letter of offer. And that letter of offer would give you all the terms and conditions of the scheme and the time period within which you have to complete the project. And we refer to the whole process as a project because for most people, that's what it is. It's not just one piece of work. It tends to be a number of pieces of work to ultimately get you online.
Okay, that's absolutely brilliant. So the reality is, if you're interested in the Trading Online Voucher or any other supports from the local enterprise office, down the very bottom of the screen, and it's been flying around all session, is localenterprise.ie/response. So visit localenterprise.ie/response. You'll find out more about the Trading Online Voucher there. You'll also find out about other local enterprise office supports that are designed to navigate your business through these very choppy waters at the moment. So check that out. I'm going to bring Keith back in, and we'll get Keith to kind of wrap up the session, and we'll get to Keith's takeaways. That's the only reason why I hung around.
Very good.
Marcella, thank you so much for all your words of wisdom.
You're welcome.
And just for anyone out there, if you're looking to contact your local enterprise office, the website is localenterprise.ie/ whatever the name of your county is. So local.
Yes, whatever county. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
.ie/ Cavan and so on. And if you're not getting through on the phone,
and you'll find it. You'll find it. If you're not going through on the phone, which some phones may be diverted, but you will always get a call back. Please go to the website and you'll see an email address there, and someone will get back to you as soon as possible.
So brilliant. So I should have had a drum roll. Where's my drum for Keith's takeaways? And we'll
chipper, like.
A huge thanks to the guys today for all their words of wisdom. It's been a brilliant session. So I really, really appreciate it. And just to kind of wrap up what we talked about today, here are 8 tips from Keith before we wave a teary goodbye. So take it away, Keith.
Okay. So yeah, just as we were going through there, avail of the trading online voucher. It makes complete sense to give you a bit of a helping hand with all your digital activities. Look at your website. I suppose throw a clear and cold eye over your existing website. Is it fit for purpose? Does it kind of represent you and your business to the best of its kind of capabilities? Is it going to be an upgrade to the website, or is it going to be a new one? These are decisions that you need to make. In some cases, look, a new website is the best way forward. The old one just isn't fit for purpose anymore, and you go on to the next generation. And that's for the platform may not be correct, the look and feel, the functionality, and all those things. So you need to make a call on that. Make sure your website allows customers to buy online, book appointments, sign up for special offers, or whatever. So if it's products that you're selling, obviously make sure it's e-commerce enabled. If it's a service-based business, make sure that you can potentially get them to book online, or pay for something online, or just generate queries. Make sure that your website is functional. Potentially spend money on Google and social ads. Taken into consideration. It's not mandatory, but obviously, if you want to show up on social media today, whether we like it or not, an awful lot of reach that businesses get on social platforms like Facebook, like Instagram, is through ads. So it's just one of these necessary evils today. I think 40% of all reach on Facebook and Instagram is through paid advertisement. There's some figure like that out there, that it's so paid media. Be it on social or be it on search is very important, and it should be a consideration. It's not mandatory, obviously. Install Google Analytics on your website. So just make sure that people will that you can see what's happening on your website, what's working, what's not working, particularly if you're paying for anything. So if you are paying for advertisement, track the impact that it's having through Google Analytics, and also maybe look at your website and set up goals and events that you can track and see what's working and what's not working, basically. The other point there, Greg, was make sure your website is optimized for search engine optimization. It is one of those things that both myself and Greg will know from doing training as well, that it's one of those things that businesses are rightly kind of obsessed with. If you can create a website that shows up organically in a reasonably high position, that will drive a lot of traffic to your website. It kind of reduces the need for you potentially to spend money on advertisement as well, and the traffic that you get through organic people, we trust those listings on Google and Bing, etc. It tends to perform pretty well too for you from a business perspective. And keep it fresh and update it regularly. That's kind of one of these things. Like, obviously, if you're e-commerce, you're adding products all the time. If you're more service-based, your website may not kind of get updated on a fairly frequent basis. You've got your services and that's it, and you don't really add too much detail to it. That can be problematic from a search perspective as well. So sticking a blog onto your website, or if you don't have to call it a blog, could be news, articles, resources, whatever it is, somewhere in there that you're injecting kind of frequent, recently updated content. Looks, your website is fresh. The search engines, by the way, they're indexing your site every day. So the more that they go in and they see that nothing's changed on your website over a longer period of time, that's going to hurt your rankings potentially as well. So and also having things like a blog on your website, you can answer people's questions, create a nice kind of conversational tone on the site as well, demonstrate a bit of the personality and things like that as well. And then keep an eye on websites that do a good job. The sites that you go to, that you shop on, that when you're on a website that you think that's good functionality, good aesthetic, smooth user experience, good content from maybe if you're looking for inspiration around blogs and stuff like that. So so keep an eye. Everybody is digitally active. We throw a critical eye over competitors, over other websites that you use yourself, and it's relatively transparent that you can get lots and lots of ideas from that as well, in terms of how things should be and how they should function, how they should run and look as well. And so that is the nice thing about online, is that you can really kind of it is quite a transparent medium, and that you can look in and see what other people are doing, be that on social media, be that on their website, and look, and you can get some ideas from that for your own business that you can apply to your own specific set of circumstances too.
Magnificent. So there's the 8 takeaways again, folks. They're fantastic. So well worth seizing upon after this session. It's bizarre. We were talking beforehand, and we were saying, oh my God, it's a 45-minute session, said Marcella. How we can fill the time? And look at the time now.
5 minutes.
Unbelievable. But it's a big thank you to the guys out there on Facebook for your brilliant questions. So thank you for making this such a great experience. There's been brilliant questions coming through, and we really, really appreciate them. There's one tricky one. It's not tricky as such. It's just, I think it's hard to say. You may have to be patient, because lots of other businesses are applying for the trading online voucher. So just to flag some frustration that may come out of today's session is I get all excited, and then I try to do my trading online session for my local enterprise office, and all the sessions are booked out. So I think there's a massive effort with the local enterprise offices at the moment to run more trading online voucher sessions. So if they are booked out, just contact your local enterprise office and see if there's any way else that they can either accommodate you on that booked out session or book you in for a future session. But just to bear that in mind, you may go, oh, I'll do one of those sessions, and then you find out that they're booked out. So obviously lots of other businesses are availing of the trading online voucher at the moment. So just to be aware of that. I nearly have a tear in my eye now as I say a goodbye and a huge thank you to Marcella and to Keith for an absolutely brilliant session. Thank you so much.
No problem at all.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you.
Greg, yeah.
I promised you guys to help me, and you didn't, so thank you for that. Thank you so much, and we'll speak to you guys soon. All the best.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye. So thanks so much to everyone that hopefully you enjoyed this particular session. Don't forget localenterprise.ie/response. And sure, next week, what will we talk about next week? If you have any ideas of what topics would be important for you to address for next week or a future week's Lunch and Learn, drop them in the comments box. So for me, Greg Fry, it's goodbye, and I'll see you next week.
Your local enterprise office, helping your business respond.
See ya.